Stephanie, how are you?
I'm good.
Oh, you are looking so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. I like your virtual background. It's very peaceful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome to the second day event of WIN conferences. Before you start your session, we will play a beautiful introduction of yours. So later you can join, so you can start your presentation. Okay?
Okay. Sounds good. Will you be speaking before me or will you just show the video?
Just the video.
Having broken her own cycle of toxic relationships, Stephanie McPhail is the author of #1 new releases in codependency, Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt, book and workbook. Her extensive resume includes a double master's degree in health and education, bachelor's in psychology, a certified coach, certified crisis counselor, Reiki practitioner, sought-after guest on numerous podcasts and summits, and the co-host of a weekly cable TV and radio show. Stephanie specializes in toxic relationship recovery, helping professional women heal and thrive so they can create and attract healthy relationships and begin to create lives and relationships that inspire rather than drain them.
Yes, you can start the presentation. Good luck.
Thank you. So am I officially started now? All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am so excited to be here. Looks like I've had some really great speakers in front of me, and I have a wonderful lineup after me. So thank you for everyone for tuning in and being a part of this really important time for Women's History Month. Such an important topic to be talking about because there's still so much more work that has to be done with women's rights, with equity, with reproductive rights, with all of it. So, and of course, domestic violence. So this is what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give a little bit of a trigger warning before I even begin any of this. I am going to be I'm going to be touching on some domestic violence situations. So if this is a trigger for you, I would like you to be warned ahead of time so that you are aware of what I'm going to be speaking about. So as that beautiful introduction started out, my name is Stephanie McPhail. I am the expert in toxic relationship recovery. So the first question I have for everybody is, has anyone in here ever been in a toxic relationship? Give me some likes and loves or some me's in the comments, because if you are someone who has experienced that, this is going to be something that you're going to want to lean into, whether you've experienced it personally or you've experienced it because of you've had friends that have experienced it, or in any type of circumstances. And there is a whole different thing. If you have an experience, but you have a friend dealing with it, then of course that's a whole other ball game, which of course we're not going to make it, we're not going to be able to talk about it this time, but that's something to be aware of as well. So for those of you who have been in a toxic relationship, I'm going to tell you, I would have never guessed in a million years that I would be sitting here on this side of the screen talking about toxic relationship recovery. In fact, I was really good at choosing really terrible people to have relationships with. Does that resonate for anybody? Because I did not know when to stop. I always give the example, it was like a pit bull, where if a pit bull grabs onto its prey, it keeps holding on and its jaw locks. It doesn't let go. And that's what I found for myself in these relationships. I got into these relationships and things weren't going very well. And I did everything in my power to make it work. Now, as a relationship expert, toxic relationship recovery expert for professional women, what I found is that professional women have something very specific. We are good with solutions, with fixing problems. This is a part of the population that's not really talked about very often. The women who are professionals, but in these toxic relationships, have a little bit of a different experience because we do a lot of research. We go and we see that the relationship isn't working, but we're not used to failing. We're used to being successful. So what do we do when things aren't working? We read books on it. We watch videos. We try self-help. We go to therapy to figure out what's wrong with us. We do all of the things that we can do. We try to change ourselves. We do all of the things that we think we need to do in order to make the relationship work. But sometimes it's just not going to. And we have to learn when to let go. So my first marriage which was not my first toxic relationship. My first marriage, I got married at a beautiful place called Ohika Castle in New York. Ohika Castle is a place where like the stars get married. It was a beautiful place. It was a place my first husband chose. I wanted to get married on the beach, but that's a whole other thing. We got married at Ohika Castle. All my family and friends came. My mom's from France, so I had my European family come. I had all the relatives came, and it was the most beautiful day. And that night, we went back to the honeymoon suite, and he put water in the tub. And as I went to put my toe in the tub, water spilled out onto the beautiful marbled floor. And he told me, "Oh, Stephanie, I don't know, what did he say? You never care about anything." And I said, "Sweetheart, it's a marbled floor. I'm sure they're used to getting water on the floor. It's not a big deal." Now, mind you, he's the one who filled up the tub, but so I got water on the floor. I said, "Sweetheart, please don't make a good day go bad." And with that last sentence, he lost his temper. He started chasing me around the honeymoon suite, naked, mind you, because I was about to get into the bathtub, telling me he wanted to kill me, that getting married was the worst mistake of his life, that he hated me, just every negative, terrible thing that he could possibly think to tell me. This went on for about 3 hours. Now, I was afraid to leave the room because I was naked. I couldn't get to my clothes because every time I tried to get to my clothes, he would be around them. So I couldn't even get to my clothes. I thought he was going to kill me. And at one point, he caught up to me, took me, threw me on the bed, and started strangling me until I almost lost consciousness. And luckily, if you've ever been in a situation where somebody loses themselves like that, there was a darkness in his eyes. And when it went away, and it looks like he almost came to, he walked away and looked really ashamed. And I curled up in a ball and I thought, oh my God, this man that I just married is going to kill me. He tried to kill me. And right away I had the thoughts of, I had all my family here. My minister married me. What do I do? I can't tell anybody, but I can't be married to this man. And of course, he knew, I always call him the salesman. He knew exactly what to say and do to try to get into my head. And he talked me into going on the honeymoon and promised that it would never happen again. Well, of course, in any of these types of situations, this always happens again. I wish I would have left. I wish I would have tried to get an annulment. I wish I would have tried to get my minister not to send in the marriage paperwork, all of those things. But I was too embarrassed to let anyone know. Has anyone ever been in that situation where something bad is going on, but they don't want to tell anybody? They think they can handle it. They don't want to bother anybody with what's going on. Well, I was the one who took care of everybody else. So this couldn't be happening to me. I couldn't be the one who was just assaulted on my wedding night. So I moved forward. And a few months later, it started again. So for the next 5 years, I was strangled again. I was spit on. I would have the walls around me, or actually he destroyed my living room in a fit of rage. He made a hole in one of the walls. I mean, all of these things, they'd keep me up at night if there was something important going on the next day, he'd keep me up at night. And all the time I was trying to figure out what I could do to fix the relationship, how I could change myself. Maybe if I spoke less, maybe if I had less opinions, maybe if I did the things that he wanted me home when he got home from work instead of being at the gym. He wanted dinner on the table. He wanted all these things that I wasn't when we first got together. That's the things he wanted once we got married. And I tried everything. I threw him out. I let him back in. And at one point, luckily, I had started thinking, I don't think I want to live this way anymore. I can't imagine living this as my life. And I called a friend and I said, hey, I think I'm ready to leave. And she said, whenever you're ready, you can come to my house. So I made a decision to go to her house after he sent me a message while I was working a second job and he was not working. And this happens a lot. Successful women, we take care of everything. And he was not doing anything to help, but he was being terrible and making my life miserable. My second job, he told me he quit the bartender or waitering position he had. And I said, sweetheart, please go get that job back. It really would be helpful if we had a few extra dollars. And he said, just like typical blank Stephanie, not to support her husband. And that was the moment that I decided to get a divorce. I went and lived with a friend. Time went. We got a divorce. I thought things would automatically get better because I was divorced, but things got worse until finally one day, 2 years later, I was in the emergency room with a sprained ankle where I heard a voice that said, you are your own knight in shining armor. You need to be the one to go and get the help because you have been the consistent one all the way through. And I thought, oh my gosh, here I was thinking I had to figure it out on my own, but that's what's been keeping me stuck. Because again, as professional women, we're used to figuring it out on our own. If I just say the right thing, do the right thing, do the right research, I will figure it out. But in these types of relationships, we're not going to. And I realized with that feeling, with that voice that I heard, I had to do whatever it took because I couldn't continue to live that way. I went on a complete, total search for who I was. I created friendships that were healthy. I traveled cross country. I discovered who I was. These are all parts of the healing that we need to do while we are healing from these toxic relationships. But important, I got a coach and I got a therapist because again, my thinking I knew had kept me stuck. So I needed somebody else who knew what they were talking about, who was better than me to help me change my thinking. Because of all that, I got to a place where I knew that I could be single for the rest of my life. I was no longer looking for relationships. I was totally happy being where I was. And that's when I met an amazing man who crossed all of the checks on my list. And I thought, if I'm going to be in a relationship with someone, I'm going to let this guy have the chance because I no longer felt like I had to prove myself to anybody else. I felt like the person that would be the right fit for me was going to have to show me that they were worthy of my time. So often women try to prove themselves. When we're in the dating world, we're trying to show that we are deserving of someone's love. But if we turn that around and realize that we are important, we deserve the love, we deserve the companionship, the inspiration, the best friend status that we get to do fun things with while also being intimate with. When we realize that we deserve all those beautiful things, we actually up level our standards and we stop accepting breadcrumbs when it comes to relationships. And because I was so sure that I would be happy single, that I really let my now husband show me who he was and we became best friends. And I realized that my life was better with him than it was without him. So we've been married, it'll be 8 years in July. We have 2 beautiful children together. And now we get to help women heal from toxic relationships as a team. How cool is that? Going from someone who was only in toxic relationships, who could never find someone who was supportive and helpful to me. Now I get to be with my husband and we get to actually do it together. And so now it's so cool because he's a little bit, we have the yin and the yang kind of thing. He's like the spiritual one and I am the grounded one. So my experience and his experience together really helps our clients to heal at a high level. Thanks, Claire. I appreciate it. So what can you do if you are someone who is in a toxic relationship? What are some of the signs, I guess is the first thing to say. How do they talk about their family members? How do they talk about their exes? A lot of the times we hear people talk negatively about exes and we brush it off and say, well, that was their experience. Maybe it was just between them. Just be aware of how they talk about it. Are they bad mouthing them? Are they just sharing experience? So pay attention to that. Pay attention to how they drive. Do they lose their temper easily when they're driving? Are they rude to wait staff? Are they rude to pets? My mom is a big animal lover. She'd always say, hey, if the animals don't like them, that's a bad sign. And my sister actually had a Rottweiler at the time. And when that Rottweiler met my ex-husband, he followed him around the house the entire time and always had his back, He'd put it right on my ex-husband and look at the rest of us. Like, is everybody okay? That Rottweiler knew that something wasn't right with him. So those animals definitely is another good red flag. Are you able to be vulnerable in the relationship? Can you share when something's bothering you? Are you able to communicate with them? Do they listen to you when there's a problem? Do they show respect? Something that you might not even realize, or I should say, that might be so obvious. When they get angry or you have a disagreement, do they go below the belt? Do they curse at you? Do they scream at you? How do they react when they're not getting their way? Because for my previous relationships, being cursed at and being called names became a normal part of my day. I was just used to being called names all the time. Now, my husband, David, I couldn't imagine him calling me names. He would not call me names because he knows that I wouldn't put up with it. And he actually jokes around. He's like, I could never imagine doing that to you because I know you'd be out in a second, even though we've been married almost 8 years and we have 2 beautiful kids. Yeah, I would. I still would. But in those past relationships, it's like that frog in boiling water. You get used to being in that water. It starts getting warmer and warmer and warmer. And all of a sudden you're boiling and you're like, how did this happen? Because these little things happen over time. And because we're used to being survivors, we keep dealing and acclimating. And we get to a point where all of a sudden we're like, how did I get here? But we haven't realized all the little things that got us there. So being cursed at, screamed at, being left places, being physically assaulted, all those things, it just kind of was like, oh my gosh, did that just happen? Like, I'm a professional woman. I've got friends. I help people. I'm a certified crisis counselor, even at that time. This can't be my life. But when you are these little things going on, those are red flags. So pay attention to those, because those little things become really big things over time. And I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is, how is the relationship affecting you? We can do all the research on narcissism, on being a sociopath, on borderline personality, on psychopaths, on all the different things that cause these types of toxic relationships. However, my big thing that I want to make sure that anyone walking away realizes is that not always are relationships abusive. Sometimes they're just not the right fit. Sometimes you have 2 amazing people that just bring out the worst in each other. So of course there's the cancer of total physical abuse, emotional, sexual, all that abuse. And then there's the stuff underneath that gets there. So I want you to ask yourself, when you're in a relationship, do I feel inspired? Do I feel supported? Do I feel free in this relationship? If the answer is no, then it's time to think about ending that relationship. And of course, if you're married, if you ask yourself all those questions and neither partner or the other partner is not willing to do work, like actual work, not just say they're going to go to therapy and then not actually do anything, but they're not willing to do anything to try to make the relationship work, then don't spend years and years and years with this person trying to help them. Allow yourself to have that freedom. It's okay to take care of yourself. So now, what should you do once you leave this relationship? If you have, again, your marriage, or it's a dating relationship, whatever kind of relationship it is. And of course, we can't go into detail because we have a short period of time about family and work relationships that are toxic and all that kind of stuff. We're going to focus on the romantic stuff for this session. But if you are in a romantic relationship and you have ended that relationship, some things to keep in mind is that you need to make sure that you are getting support. Doing this on your own has been what got you to this point. It's okay to ask for help. Our generation is better at asking for help. We still got a long way to go. Older generation has a really hard time in general asking for help. It's not a bad thing to admit that something isn't going right and you need help from a therapist, from an expert, someone like me. If you don't resonate with me, then get another coach to help you through it, but get support to help you figure things out. Really important to be able to do that. Make sure that you are not comparing yourself to other people. Hey, this person has this perfect life. This person is further ahead in their healing than I am. Whatever it is. Don't we all know about filters on social media? They're not just filters of like your face. They're also people only posting things that are really good and positive. So if we compare our lives to somebody else, we don't realize how many other people are also suffering. I had no idea. I felt so alone when I was in the toxic relationship. I had no idea that so many other people were also dealing with it. I thought I was the only one. And it was so lonely. It was so isolating. It was so embarrassing, so shameful. So stop comparing yourself to other people. The next one, create adventure. You were not put on this planet to merely survive. There's a whole beautiful world out there that is there for you to experience. Life should be your adventure. You know, when I left my first husband, my last toxic relationship, I remember feeling like I had these like gray glasses and I didn't realize they were there. And, you know, it's like when your glasses are smudgy and they're like, it's hard to see through, but you don't even realize till you take them off and you're like, how have I been looking through these things? And I took them off and all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, this is what the world looks like. This is how life is. And everything was more colorful and more beautiful and more amazing. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have to tell other women that this is how life could be, that they don't have to be trapped. They don't have to be stuck, and they too can create something more amazing than they ever could have thought. Like I said in the beginning, I could have never imagined that I would be here talking to you about this topic because I was always that person. Part of who I was the girl who was in toxic relationships, the girl who was with men who pretended to be great until they actually had to settle down and show me who they were. If I can do it, if I can change from that person to be here sharing with you my knowledge and now helping hundreds of women heal, it is possible for you, no matter how old you are, no matter what you've experienced. If you haven't been able to do it yet, it is possible. You just need the right support. So if you're interested in finding out more about what I do, definitely check out my website, beinglovedshouldn'thurt.com. I actually just had a really cool experience. I was featured in New York Weekly yesterday. Oh, was it yesterday? Tuesday. And I was on Fox 17 Morning Mix News. And the cool thing is the more that I get out on these platforms, the more that people come to me and say, I had no idea that so many other people were dealing with this. Now I feel less alone. Your story can inspire and help others. Don't be afraid to get the right support. Share your story, get the right help, and you will be amazed at what's possible for you. So I think that my time is up. I don't know if there's a time for questions. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I am here to answer any questions that you have. I see you, Melinda, but I don't hear you. Does anyone have any questions? I saw Claire say beautiful about 9 minutes ago. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I cannot hear your voice, Stephanie.
You can't hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry.
Okay. I was going to say, I was like, oh my gosh, I just spoke for 30 minutes and nobody heard me. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time.
I can see that in your face. Thank you so much. It's really enlightening speech. I know if marriage is broken, because we will have so many dreams, right? I get to feel so alone. We think if we have a partner and we will have some dreams to have a family, but sometimes it happens. It's nothing but we don't. They don't deserve actually. So they don't deserve us. So we have to move on. We as a woman, we are really strong. So we can do anything independently.
And I will tell
So
you,
it's
and
not an ending. It's not an ending.
it's not an ending, but I was more alone in my abusive, toxic relationship than I ever felt alone once I left. And I think that as women, we're so often told that we don't have value if we're not married. And so, and I grew up religious. So once you get married, you stay married. You make it work. You do everything you can to make the relationship work. So I felt really like a failure. Like, oh my gosh, it's my fault that this is happening. But I will tell you that it's more of a failure to stay in a toxic relationship, and it's more of a failure to your children, if you do have them, to watch their parents have this type of relationship, because then that's what they learn. That is more of a failure than getting out, taking care of ourselves, and then creating a life that we're happy to wake up to every day.
Yes, being in a relationship, if you are not happy, it's better. We have to be alone. If we are so being alone is also we are doing happy being in relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about us, self confidence. So this is the question from the audience. So what do you think the most important elements in maintaining a relationship?
The most important elements of making a relationship healthy, I would say number one is being able to communicate. I mean, that's if I was going to just pick one, that would be number one. And communicate and being vulnerable. So, like for example, because I knew that I was okay if I was single forever, when I first met my husband, I was still dating other people. And I told him, I said, just so you know, I'm dating other people. And he said, okay, I'm not going to tell you to stop, but know that I am interested in you and I would like to date you exclusively. And I said, you're not going to tell me to stop. You're going to just let me keep dating people. Like I had never met a man that was like, okay, that's fine. Not trying to be controlling, just letting me be me. And I was like, whoa, that's weird. And because of that, I was able to tell him everything. So we became friends. And there's nothing, even to this day, there's no story or anything ever that I have to edit in my mind that I know that he will be angry or give me a hard time or anything like that. That ability to communicate everything. And there are even some times where, he'll say, well, like, why didn't you say that? And I'm like, I didn't even think to, because it's just like, the communication is just so easy. But again, when in the past, when I was not, if I communicated my feelings, it would be used against me. And when you're in a healthy relationship, realizing how important it is to communicate, it's such a game changer. So I'd say communication, that goes along with vulnerability. So to be able to share those things that you might not want to share with other people, or share something that you don't know how they're going to react or be happy with that. And then I would say the third thing, if I was going to, and they all go together, is trust. To know, I know that if my husband goes out in public, I don't have to worry about him, number one. But number two, the people that he meets, if I meet them later on, will say, oh my gosh, he just talked so well about you. We can't wait to meet you because he just thinks the world of you. And to have someone who is talking good about you, even when you're not there, who is rooting for you and wants you to do your best and wants to support you no matter what, is just amazing. So I would say top three, definitely those top three.
Yes, that's really true. That's really true. So for being a healthy relationship, definitely we have to communicate, and we do have a trust. Yes. So yeah. So thank you so much for your continuous support with WIN conferences. So this is the second day to event. So with all the continuous support from all the speakers, yeah, yesterday we went really very good and really a good start, and also with the same energy, with the same power, we are starting the day two event as well. So we really got it's really a good start from all the speakers learning a good message. from each one of you as well as is going live in the Paris. You will find the Paris event and you can